So this is the research season on India, and we have one more research, and it is called Pew Research. Of course, you know Pew very well. We are not talking about poo, but we are talking about Pew. So what is this all about? Please subscribe, and then we'll find out. Namaste and welcome to this 10 p.m. session on the Jaipur Dialogues. And this is Wednesday, and this is 10 p.m. And this is Vibhuti Jha, along with Richa Gautam. I think Richa ji has come on Jaipur Dialogues USA earlier.
Yes.
And let me introduce her to the Jaipur Dialogues viewers. Well, Richa ji is a very, very active dharmic residing in the US, and she is always working out these Indic topics. So, with that, I'll request Richa ji to first tell us what these Pew Research findings. Some people were saying Pew Research, but that is not correct. It is Pew Research. So, what are these Pew Research findings?
Is there some sort of echo going on? I'm just going to see if there's a window that's open that's causing the echo. Are we good?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
I think there was a WhatsApp window that was open. So namaste to everybody. Namaste, Sanjay ji, Vibhuti ji, and all the audience. So this is Pew Research. Basically, Pew has been doing religious surveys in the United States and across the world. This is the first time they have really done such a big and extensive survey in India. And to understand obviously there's a lot of interest on what's happening in India, from a religious perspective, from just the overall, a harmony and all of those issues which media is playing up so much. So Pew has come up with a research with very surprising findings. So I think I want to just hand over the stage back to you, the mic back to you, Sanjay ji. And if you want me to start, just let me know, because I do have presentation slides.
Yeah, so you can start sharing the slides.
Okay. Can you see the slides?
No, we
Not
can't see anything.
yet.
Okay.
You have to use that share feature and then use the app and use the app option in the share feature.
So while the technology is being fixed, I wanted to just come in here with a few thoughts, because we did a program here on my show in New York, along with a professor from San Diego, from in California, and we did a deep look at the 250-page report and the 35-page summary. And I wanted to send you the presentation that it was created. But the very important thing, that while Richa is getting her system fixed, there are certain very interesting findings, Sanjay ji. One is...
just a minute, I can interject. Richa ji, if you're having problems running the slides from there, you can just WhatsApp that presentation to me, and we can play it from here.
Okay.
I think that would be a great idea. That would be correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We just send it by WhatsApp, and we will play it here from here. Yes, Vibhuti ji.
Yeah. So what we found was there were some very interesting conversation and discussions and points that came out and findings that came out. That you and I and everybody knows that many research are done to prove a particular point. So what happens is, we do not know what was the intent of Pew to do this extensive research. It was key findings were that India is not a melting pot; it's rather a quilt, razai hai, where everybody is spread out in every sense of the term, and each has its own, each grain of cotton and wool has its own purpose to serve, covering one end or the other. That was a very interesting thing. Other part was very important was that all religions coexist with freedom and respect. That was very remarkable finding. And there are data to support it. The other finding was that the vast majority of the minorities do not face any discrimination of any basis, on any basis. Minorities do not feel unsafe in India. This is data driven. This is entirely data driven. And what was also important was that in terms of belief and identity, many Muslims are unique and they feel they have a lot in common with Hindus. That is not about DNA, but in terms of commonality, maybe it has a lot to do with the fact that the historical tradition of conversion and everything that has happened, that was another thing. It also is clear that the data was very stratified, and they approached all the 33 states in a strata-wise data, and Union Territory as well. They attributed weighted average to the whole thing, and total number of responses were 29,999. That number is very interesting. It's like the American concept of $19.99 or $29.99. So 29,999 adults responded, and the response rate was remarkably high. I mean, so many data which Richa ji will share with you later on, you will realize that the data response rates were about 75 to 80% on many issues. So the one thing which
I think the screen share is working.
Good.
Share screen is now working.
Yeah, I figured it out.
Yeah. So so we can hand over the chair back to Richa ji. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, Sanjay ji, and Vibhuti ji. Thanks for that little, summary of how the survey was conducted, because that really helps to understand, how they created a little microcosm, so it's a little mini India in that 30,000 sample, and they use that to project to the entire Indian, population. So, for example, if they have 30% in the rural, in the urban area and 70% in the rural, that's how the mini sample, the 30,000 people will be divided also. So that is the stratification that Vibhuti ji just spoke about. And they have random sample picking so that there is no bias or, any sort of selection bias in that process. So with that, I just want to go into some of the high level findings, because that is just going to give an understanding before we go into the depth of the, slides and the numbers that were found. So, like Vibhuti ji just said, that they called the title of the final report was Tolerance and Segregation. I think that is a point of discussion. We can have it later, but is it tolerance or is it respect for other religions? And segregation, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think that is something we can talk about. And just like America is a melting pot, this is just, I think after 9/11, this cartoon came out, can I get the Muslims on the side? But basically in US is supposed to be a melting pot, so basically people just come here, they take up the American identity, whether it's just the American dream, the barbecuing, or the overall just how people, assimilate into the society without trying to, present their identities very strongly. So on the other hand, India has been found to be a country of unique identities, sort of like the Indian thali, the Gujarati thali, Rajasthani thali, South Indian thalis, they're all different, and they all have little, separate identities or separate bowls, but they all come together for a wonderful meal. So similarly, India seems to be that sort of a country that mixes together while also keeping their unique identities. And to sort of look at the Pew results and actually some of the red flags that the media keeps raising about India, especially after the new government of Narendra Modi took over 6 years ago, there has been so much talk about caste discrimination, religious discrimination, intolerance or interfaith, disharmony, things like that. But what are the key results of this survey? So, largely the findings have been very, very positive. In terms of caste discrimination, most people have said, large number of people have said, no, there is no caste discrimination. Religious discrimination, not really. Interfaith harmony, very much. People respect each other, people respect each other's faiths, and they really feel that, respecting the identity of another religion or community member is key to being Indian and key to their religion also. So that is very interesting. On how Muslims perceive India going forward is also a very, very interesting finding. The noise in the media is very different from what a common man is saying during this study without any prompting. And also diversity, mutual coexistence have been found to be very key factors of India. And segregation, like I said, people live maybe in separate neighborhoods largely, and, they want to not marry, intermarry, things like that. But, segregation is again, in any diverse country, including America, segregation is part of the whole milieu. So, is it a good thing or a bad thing? I think it'll be great to have feedback from both Sanjay ji and Vibhuti ji on this. And I want to just talk about some of the reactions from the media, from the leftist, and some of the narrative drivers. Definitely, they have been stumped. First of all, a lot of the coverage on caste and harmony and diversity has not come out strongly in the media. If the report had been negative, I guess they would have had a field day, fielding all of these stories. But now the stories that they are coming up with is, well, the survey findings are unexpected. One of the leftist professors, I think she's Neera Chandok, she said that it's a very ambitious survey and India is a plural society, but that does not mean that pluralism is a value in India. So basically, they're basically trying to undermine it. There is this a CEC, the ex-election commissioner, Qureshi, he says, you mentioned it was random sampling, but it seems you landed up at the doors of very secular people. Well, that is, so the whole narrative that is being built, is definitely being undermined. And Pew Research's Neha Sehgal, who's the director of this survey, she said that, look, Muslim respondents were not shy in answering the survey questions. They took a stand and, they took contrary stands. Whatever they wanted to say, they were very frank. So she basically countered this in one of her interviews, saying that I don't agree with these kind of comments. So I think one of the key findings there then is that the whole academia, media really comes from the Western philosophies and the colonial lens, right? So that really has to stop, because unique identity of India has to be respected. Our civilizational ethos of diversity from a millennia has really come through in this survey so beautifully. And hats off to Pew Research, because they really are used to doing this, And I, as someone who has done a lot of these consumer surveys for corporates and all, I do really understand that their methodology is very, very strong and very, very, probabilistic. So they haven't really, tampered with any of the data. So very, very wonderful findings, actually. And I think this will sort of go against a lot of the narrative.
Yes,
That is,
yes.
I think I should let comments come in from both of you at this point.
I think we will go to the findings first, and then I think we'll jump in.
Okay, sounds good. So I'll give quick results on the religious freedom, because look at it, in the US, we are fighting all these battles with USCIRF, which is the US, Religious Freedom Council. So they have put India in the dock saying, look, they don't have religious freedom because of the Hindu nationalism. But when you ask the Indians, overwhelming percentage of all religions say that they are very free to practice their religion. Their religion is, they respect other religious identity. People respect their religious identity, and being Indian means, respecting all religions. So that is a beautiful sort of, chart that we have right in front of us. And
right. I'm surprised the Jains are giving the minimum marks.
Right. Jains have, the minorities have really come up here with very significant, differences. But we will see Jains, yes, coming up again and again with these kind of.
That's very surprising, but I thought they are the wealthiest and the freest and, the most well-to-do of them all.
But
Anyway.
still, statistically, Sanjay ji, this is not significant. 85% of the Jains have said that they are free to practice their religion. So, skews are usually measured from that angle of whether they're statistically significant. And here, almost you can say universally, all Indians are happy with how they are allowed to practice religion.
Right.
I remember a 2012 survey of Pew that actually said, when Indian Americans were asked, they said they had better freedom of speech and better ability to practice their religion in India than here. So, India, really comes out on top with this. Secondly, I'm going on to the next slide. And this is about India's religious groups. And, while they respect each other and each other's practices, they also see themselves differently. They think that they are different from each other. And the closest they feel is to the Hindus. If you see the numbers, the maximum number of even the, Abrahamic faiths or the non-Abrahamic, they feel closest to the Hindus. Among the, Sanatani faiths like Sikhs and Buddhists and Jains, the Jains feel closer to the Hindus, closest actually. Sikhs, I think this is very heartening for me because I deal a lot here with interfaith dialogue with Khalistanis. So look at this. 52% at least say we have a lot in common with Hindus. So the Sikhs in India are very different from the Sikhs here. And the Buddhists, I find them very interesting all through. You find them very different, in terms of considering that it's a Sanatani faith. So I just wanted to point those things out. I'll just move on to the next slide. So Buddhists, again, they have this whole nihilism, like not believing in any God. So 33%, a third of the Buddhists say that they do not believe in any God. So I thought that was very interesting, given that.
Yeah. I'm surprised at Muslims. 9% do not believe.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Where are they hiding? That's my question.
Exactly. Where are those 9%? We got to look for those 9%. 9% is a lot.
It is.
It is a hell of a lot, I guess. 9% of about 15 crores, or maybe.
No, it's not 9. It is 6%. 6%.
It's 6%. The rest of them might have just refrained from answering. Sometimes people don't answer, so they don't have. But those are like sort of fence sitters, I would say. So.
How 6% of 20 crores is what?
Yeah, that's a significant number, right?
Oh, it's 1.2 crore people. I'm looking for those 1.2 crore now.
Yes.
Right.
The other part was very important, that 67% of the Buddhists are scheduled caste, and that brings about Arakshan issue. Are Buddhists eligible for Arakshan? there are many interesting data that has come out. And from my point of view, like having gone through the things in detail, prepared a report ourselves, and we had a very extensive discussion on this, that what we found of this one, and I will straight away jump to certain of the derived messages, that the entire global narrative, the mainstream media narrative, the India hater, Hindu hater narrative, that India is an unsafe place. People are crying, Indian American Muslim Council and others are talking about religious persecution of minorities in India. It all blows out in their face. None of them have commented that.
I think we need to collect more data. Let's go.
Let's look at more data. Look at more data.
Look at more data.
Absolutely.
This is just warming up. This is just warming up, I guess. Yeah.
We are getting into caste in a little bit after this.
Yes. Please carry on.
Buddhists, I must just say that Buddhists, yes, they are part of that reservation quota. They do have that. I've been studying this a lot because of the caste issues in the US. So now let's move on to just how deeply spiritual Hindus are in India. I thought this was very interesting. Not only do Hindus, they know that there is one God and there are many manifestations. So it is not as if polytheism in India is same as, say polymorphism, or, they believe that there is one energy and has different manifestations.
Actually, that famous, they're talking about Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. I just quote from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad only. It says, Eko Vashi Sarva Bhutantaratma Ekam Rupam Bahudha Yah Karoti. So that's one form multiplies into many forms. That's there from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad itself. And exactly as it says, what is called as Samoham Sarva Bhuteshu. Samam Sarveshu Bhuteshu Tishtantam Parameshwaram. And that's then this indestructible, enduring reality, the next part of the shlok. Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam parameshwaram vinashyatsu avinashyantam. That vinashyatsu within the destructible, what is indestructible, anyone who sees that is actually the seer. That is vinashyatsu avinashyantam yah pashyati sa pashyati. This is from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And Srimad Bhagavad Gita is actually essence of all Upanishads. Om Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Arjuna Vishad Yogo or different names of the Prathamodhyaya, Tiyodhyaya, whatever. So yes, this is beautifully put.
Right. So this is beautiful, but for us, for people who are reading the Vedas and all, it may come naturally. But even to maybe the illiterate rural person also, they are able to at least understand the concept. So that is ingrained, I guess, inside the Hindu, in general.
Absolutely.
Right. And moving on to the next slide, this is also...
Can I see the last slide again, please?
This one? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, okay. Only one God is 29 and 61. Okay, yeah. So it includes all Vedantins, everybody. Of course, the Hindu community itself is very diverse. But I'm surprised at Muslims.
Exactly.
22% say that one God with many manifestations. This is shirk. Lahore Villa Kuwat. What is happening? This is kufr.
I mean, even the Christians, like 24%, a quarter of them.
Oh.
They're very likely that these are the people who converted and they still hold to the original view. Think about it from that point of view, that they are the people who could be the source of inspiration to others to come out. That's what you are talking about, the 1.2 crore. That's where they are.
And the Buddhists appear to be the most diehard.
That, yes.
Exactly. Buddhists are coming out to be so different from the entire, we need to find out, do a little bit more deep dive into Buddhists, because I really didn't
Yes. This
how,
needs to be discussed. Okay,
right?
please carry on.
But so the other thing I want to just point out here, there's so much data. This is 230 pages report, but these people, some of these Muslims and Christians also believe in karma. They believe that the Ganga washes their sins, so those kind of findings also have come out from India,
Yes.
so very
Please carry on. This is looking very, very interesting.
right.
I had only a cursory look at these findings, but now as we go deeper into it, they are appearing more and more interesting.
Absolutely. And, the other point is very interesting is that, there is a secularization theory that as people, progress in education, socioeconomic levels, they tend to go away from religion. But in India, that does not apply. I guess because dharma and, science don't contradict each other, So basically in India, there is no real difference. People who believe in God, whether they have formal education, urban, rural, there is not much of a divide, generally it's
Yes.
yeah,
Great. Yeah. Great finding this also.
this is a great finding, and it just shows that dharma is so scientific that it doesn't contradict any of your education. It's not contradictory. Okay, moving on to the next, about the whole segregation issue that they mentioned on their headers, would you accept other religions as your neighbor? So I think, Sanjay ji, you mentioned about the Jains, the Jains, I think, are the most like, we don't want to stay with others because I guess, they have such clear habits in terms of how they eat and, all of those things. So they really don't want to stay with closer to others. And also Hindus, I think, are more or less pretty okay, but they, second, I guess they're the second most stringent in terms of that. And then the Sikhs and then the others, So I guess largely they should have explored food habits, or at least, because I think they are making a big deal about this segregation. But as someone who has stayed in India, we all know that, Parsis live in Bombay in a secluded neighborhood, and Muslims want to stay closer to the mosque. In the US also, I think, Vibhuti ji, you would be, witness to it in New York and all, where the Jews want to live closer to their synagogues because they walk on Saturdays to their synagogues. And Hispanics, I have been to Hispanic bastis, they are totally different in how they look and character. So
Yes.
I think
Hindus seem to be the most acceptable neighbor
yes.
among everyone. So the theory of Hindutva theory of Shashi Tharoor goes through the window.
Exactly. Oh my God. This whole report throws out Hindutva. As we go along, you will see more and more of that, more and more. So I think this sort of covers religion. I want to know if we want to talk about any points here, or should I move on to caste?
I think we should move on to caste and religion, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll pause after that.
Caste, again, there is very interesting findings, and it sort of ties into some of the things that are happening in the United States, because earlier they were trying to, and it's always been the case, they were trying to pigeonhole Hindus as casteist, right? And if you look at caste, it is a colonial concept, right? It was imposed on the entire South Asian population, and you can see that it pans across all religions. That is a very important finding of this, and a slide that I can take to these local organizations that are fighting us, politicians who are, sort of believing those.
89% of Buddhists are scheduled caste. Okay, and
Yeah.
5% scheduled tribe.
That's right.
So there are no real Buddhists actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, these are from that Ambedkar era, I think, right?
Yes, these are all Ambedkarites, neo-Buddhists, who actually don't count as Buddhists. They made an artificial kind of an category. Neo-Buddhists are as Abrahamic as any of the other Abrahamic castes.
You just said it, sir, because, but I've seen that the Buddhists and the Christians, they seem to have very common sort of, thread across the whole survey answers. But I have dissected some of those numbers later also, especially the Christians. But what I found very interesting here is the way, the general category is just 28% for the Hindus. And, if you see, it's sort of divided a third, like SCST is a third, and then of course OBC is a third. So that's sort of interesting. Muslims, I was very surprised. Maybe I don't know the ground reality that OBCs, 43% of the Muslims identify as OBCs. So they do get quota, I think, the reservation.
Yeah, they get quotas. OBC is applicable to Muslims as well.
Mm-hmm. And Christians, as you can see, 33 plus 24, so about 57% are converts from the SCST. So Christians have definitely targeted those particular groups and converted. So moving on.
47%. My God.
Yeah, that is a very shocking number. When we came across this, we said, "Oh my God, ye kaise ho gaya?"
Right. It's almost half and half, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next, please.
Okay, so this is the whole narrative in the United States, Equality Labs and the organization that keeps saying that, oh, you're caste privileged Hindus, Brahmins and whatever. So they don't let us even talk in some of the meetings. But what we find in the survey from India, there is no such thing as caste privilege. It's a false narrative in terms of how poor people are, So when you look at people who are really going through hardships, whether it's SCST, whether it's Brahmins or general OBC, there's no skew. There's equal number of Brahmins who are poor, or like it says here, around a third of them of SCST. About almost a third of the general category. So that whole idea of caste privilege has to stop. It's a false narrative.
It is. It has always been a false narrative. It's an imposed narrative. Yeah, please. Let's have a slide, yeah.
So it's good to hear a third party talk about it. We've always been saying that. Then we come to caste discrimination. How many people said that they face caste discrimination? Less than 20%. 14% said yes in the general population. Overwhelmingly, 80+% said we don't face any caste discrimination in the last 12 months. So this is a huge finding, because, look at the amount of talk that goes on everywhere about caste discrimination. And I'm sure the leftists are just, very sad about this finding. And when people were asked, would you mind having Dalit as a neighbor?
I'm surprised. It says that, okay, scheduled caste tribes, only 17% say that they've experienced caste discrimination. Which is almost at par with the Brahmins and other general categories and the OBCs. And, that's very
These numbers are
revealing.
Are almost shocking. It's completely, as I mentioned in the beginning, it completely belies the global narrative of intolerant India, the Hindutva villains, and the minorities are persecuted. This was a shocker of a discovery. And I have decided that anybody who tells me anymore that is not an Indian research, it's your Pew Research. Go and have a look at that and then come and talk to us. So there has to be a good response to this and good use of this material. Then only it will make some difference to the actuality on the ground. Yes, go ahead, Richa ji.
Absolutely. This has to be translated into academia.
Are you hitting upon the conversion issue data that came out?
Conversion, it's the next topic.
All right, good. That's another hot issue. That's why I thought you will touch that as well.
Yes, that's pretty exciting as well. I think this is exciting. Data has never been as exciting as this, frankly.
Yes, it is, definitely.
Right.
Great data. Next one, please.
When you look at Dalit neighbors, would you accept, even the rural people, 70% said, yes, we don't mind having a Dalit neighbor, which to me was given the kind of narratives we hear, I was pretty surprised, actually. But this is what the data says. This is what Pew Research says. I just want to quickly throw in a slide from Carnegie Endowment Survey. They did a survey of Indian Americans. I mean, Indians, are garnering a lot of interest everywhere. So Indian American survey also, they tried to throw in the caste mix for the Hindus to see whether people are feeling discriminated by caste. And again, it is, as you can see, the lowest bars are for caste. There was not even
it's not even 5%.
Not even 5%. So it was not even statistically significant, So it was just amazing to see this as well, that this is something we, of course, carry everywhere with us now.
In fact, the color discrimination seems to be pretty significant.
Right.
Yes. So people feel, whoever feels discriminated against, they feel it's largely because of the color of their skin. That was the biggest reason.
And the mainstream media picks up that one instance and glorifies it and makes a notorious impact as if we are the evil. That's the important part to bear in mind, how the media plays up the role, or the vested interests play the role in terms of talking about things that are negligible, that have negligible existence.
Right. Okay, let's move to the next one.
Right.
I've never seen Sanjay ji so excited. Data.
Data. And let me tell the viewers, please, this data is exciting. Yeah. And as Vibhuti ji says, that even the stolid me is getting excited. So I'm sure that you should share the excitement and don't hesitate to ask questions. In fact, start thinking of the questions that you want to ask on this data. There can be a hell of a lot of questions. Next one, please.
Exactly. So because, when asked, so, all that acceptance, all that was fine. They're like, yeah, we will live and let live. We don't mind you living in our neighborhood, whatnot. But when it comes to marriage, clearly there is, overwhelmingly people don't want to, intermarry, like, especially Muslims. If you see, they're so conservative, over 75% or almost 80% don't want their women to marry in inter-religious, marriages. And Hindus also, closer to 60s. 2/3, I would say. And Sikhs also, around 60%, Jains also around 60%. But of course, Christians and Buddhists, they don't mind, they seem to be like, okay, fine. So like I said, Christians and Buddhists seem to be talking in sort of a unison, they have
actually, this data is a little skewed because if you say all religions, because then there would be preferences also. For instance, Hindus and Sikhs, they don't have any issue. Hindus and Sikhs have no issues, very little issues marrying with each other. Similarly with Jains. So Hindus, Sikhs and Jains should be on one side. And Buddhists, of course, is a very, skewed up category, a very small one. I don't take that as statistically significant.
Yeah.
But if you had taken one particular, if they had taken that who all would like to marry or would not like to marry a Muslim, and I think this would have been much, much higher among Hindus, Sikhs, Jains, even Buddhists. I'm not sure about Christians, but even Christians, I think the greatest hesitancy is marrying a Muslim because of the kind of taboos that they put on the spouse after marriage and the kind of forced conversion that becomes almost compulsory. So I think if they had done that kind of a segregation, then a different data would have come out. From my experience, I can say that this 67% Hindus who are, the 33% who are saying they're cool to marrying outside their community would not include Muslims. They would include Sikhs, they would include Jains, Buddhists maybe Christians too, but when it comes to Muslims, there would be a strict no.
Yeah,
that brings out to the thing that I said, that in all these surveys and researches, what you ask is equally important about than what you don't ask.
No, that is a reason.
That's the
Because
reason.
they have this Quranic injunction, this is 2.221, that says that you cannot marry anyone outside your community. So both of them have to have that iman wale hone chahiye, dono. So whether you marry a girl, she would insist that the boy converts, and if you marry a boy, then the boy insists that the girl converts. So because of this forced conversion part, I think there is the greatest hesitancy about Muslims. And that is why this love jihad trope gets intensified.
Yeah.
It's because of their very, very conservative attitudes. And that's coming out here also.
Yeah.
The conservative attitude is coming out in this data point as well.
Right.
Absolutely, it's coming out. I mean, they are the most conservative, as you can see. But in terms of, I mean, it would be interesting to know, some of the things that you just mentioned as to clubbing them together. The Abrahamics versus the non-Abrahamics. But if you look at the
Exactly, if they had done this Abrahamic versus non-Abrahamic, then things would have been probably
would have
different.
been slightly
Anyway,
different, maybe.
yeah.
But if you look
No,
at
I think not just slightly, they would have been very different.
if you look at intercaste also, Sanjay ji, if you look at that, they have very similar, like 60% of the population, 63, 64 percent of the Hindus, men and women.
Do we have the next one?
This is the next one. This is on, that was interreligious. This is intercaste.
Yeah,
So
I can't
here-
see it.
Can you see it?
No. Something
Oh.
happened to the screen.
You don't see this? Maybe you need to fix that
The
again.
next slide. Can you see this one?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, now
No.
now we see. Oh, now we see.
Okay, so this slide is not visible. That's weird.
Yeah, okay, this is stop intercaste marriages. Okay.
Yes.
Most Indians say it's crucial to stop intercaste marriages. Oh, so more Muslims than anyone else. Once again, the Muslims also practice casteism.
That's right. I mean, that we saw in that earlier slide, caste is
No,
not.
actually, people do not know the Muslims, but there is something called, they have this dance of kufu. Kufu actually means sameness. Kufu and kafat, that particular principle or the doctrine, it's an Hanafi fiqh doctrine. So in that fiqh doctrine, it is clearly stipulated that men and women should marry only within their station. And that is in at similar levels or similar classes. So that is there.
Right. And so if you see the inter-religion versus intercaste, the numbers are sort of similar, which is why I felt like maybe, people are just conservative, But I'm sure if they had measured this like 20 years ago, that 63% would have been probably 80%. Who knows? But that's probably where we are right now with the
Yeah, so
right?
why don't we just leave it to choice? I mean, why do we have to force things down people's throat? Well, it's their choice.
Right.
What do you say, Vibhuti ji? Some element of progressiveness has to be made mandatory in order to pass the cancellation test.
Oh, yes. Why not? Absolutely.
Right. So,
Okay. Next one, please.
next one is about conversions. Vibhuti ji just asked, and here you are. So this is just, I sort of made this slide, basically just to show that there is a little bit of a tug of war, in terms of population change, So they asked this question: were you raised a particular religion, and are you currently following the same religion? And most religions, most people said yes, we are following the same religion. But I think in Christians, you find that there is a little bit of increase, So Christians are obviously converting pretty successfully, and we'll go forward to look at more granular data over there. And Hindus, it seems like, it's very minuscule. I don't think it's even statistically significant. But 81.6% were raised Hindu, and now it's 81.7%. So I
So
don't.
that's 0.1% increase, is it?
Right. I mean, if anything makes you happy, here you are. You know, there is some.
Ghar wapsi is successful.
Yes.
थोड़ी घर वापसी तो हुई.
Exactly. थोड़ा बहुत काम चल रहा है, ग्राउंड पे वो दिख रहा है, प्यू रिसर्च में भी. So Christians. Now Christian conversion is rampant among SCST. We saw that earlier too. And I just measured this Q, you know, like in SCST, like as a percentage of the population, you know, Christians are at, in tribal areas, I think they're really targeted, you know, so 267%. Instead of 100, it's 267, you know, the amount of Christians you find within that group. So that is the skew you see over there. And in SC also, there's a slight skew. And only the Christian population seems to be growing, you know, so the rest of them are on status quo. And when you look at the vast majority of the Hindus who convert to Christianity, a lot of them are in the south. You know, as you can see that bigger circle down south, that's the 0.4% increase that you see. Largely it's from down south. I mean, of course, they have already converted a lot of the northeastern belt, and, you know, south has a lot more opportunity for them. So, but those pink spots are where Christianity is growing, you know, in the percentage mentioned.
I know. Andhra is the hot spot right
Tamil
now.
Nadu is the one which is going through the MAC.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the one thing I wanted to sort of bring out is some of the, you know, details I saw in the report. So, you know, we always see, you know, the Islamic doctrine as a big issue also, you know, and how they look at the kafirs and whatnot. But in terms of Christian population and how they react to the poll or the survey, you will see that they have a lot of skewed understanding of discrimination. So look at this. First, I'm just reading the first bucket, you know. On an average, 20% of the Indians have said that, okay, there is some discrimination for against the scheduled castes, right? But Christians, that number is 31%. So I just wonder if there's some sort of indoctrination going on at the church.
Indoctrination, narrative building, all that, yeah.
Exactly. So they seem to be much more active. And the Muslims, from that angle, I did not see any of that sort of information coming out, you know. So personally, when the second box, I'm just looking at the second point, which says that, you know, fewer said that they personally face discrimination. So they haven't personally faced discrimination, but they seem to be feeling that, you know, there is a lot of discrimination going on around the country, you know. And,
it's all the narrative-based discrimination.
Right.
Exactly. And the last, you know, red box that I've highlighted is also half of the converts to Christianity, almost, you know, 50% almost, say that there is a lot of discrimination against scheduled caste in India. So they themselves have not faced it. Again, only 12% have faced it. But, you know, they are saying that 50% of them, you know, are discriminated against and whatnot. So basically, there's a lot of narrative and indoctrination that's going on. And, you know, that is something to watch out for, I think. So because also, this was an interesting thing that they are looking at this kind of granular data for BJP. I mean, obviously, Pew is not doing such an expensive survey. They took 3 years to develop the whole process and the methodology and conduct it and field it and everything and analyze it. So they want also some very actionable information. And so what they find, some of the information on BJP also is being researched. 90% of Christians do not vote BJP. And, you know, the voting pattern for Christians is largely because they're concentrated down south. So that's, south has proved to be that impenetrable fortress, right, for BJP. So that sort of comes out here in this slide. So any thoughts before I move on to the next?
Yes, I think you can move on. Yeah, please.
So this is one of the most interesting findings, I think, the Muslim attitudes, you know. First of all, for banning triple talaq, you know, I mean, I personally had no idea that there was a lot more support for triple talaq among the women and men in the Muslim, religious group than what we perceive. So, first of all, majority of the population said triple talaq should be banned. They oppose triple talaq. Now, Christians, as you see, they only 44% said. Most religious groups, 50% and over, almost 70% have said that triple talaq is not a good thing, And even among the Muslims, the women, 61% have said triple talaq is not good. Men also have said so, 50% and over.
52%, yeah. So I'll tell you the cue to this, I'll give you the cue to this. This triple talaq business, it is opposed basically by the what I call the AMM class, the Ashraf Mullah Maulana class, which is actually a 10% minority. But the indigenous Muslims, culturally, they do not favor this practice. And they may use this as some kind of an opportunistic exercise. But they actually do not prefer it. And that's why you see this data. And if you've been listening to my talks with the Pasmanda activists, especially Fayaz Ahmad Fazi, then you would realize that he was saying that talaq is a disaster as far as our community, our Pasmanda community is concerned. But as far as the Ashraf communities are concerned, for them, it's a plaything. Right. They divorce daily. They follow the sunnat, the example of the Prophet, who would also do it actually comes from there only. Following the example of the Prophet is considered to be the best thing to do, because in 87 places in the Quran it is mentioned that the best person that can ever be is the Prophet, and therefore everybody tries to follow the Prophet's conduct, especially the Ashraf Mullah Maulana class, which is about 10-12%. But the rest of them, who are all converts, they still have the preference for the indigenous practices. And the indigenous practice largely, even though I would say that even in the Hindu community, polygamy was allowed before the Hindu law came in. The Hindu Marriage Act came in. Before the Hindu Marriage Act or the Hindu personal law, it was allowed. But did they practice it? If you had surveyed probably in the 1950 also and tried to find how many people had more than one wife, then the percentage would have been maybe 3, 4, 5, something like that. So if you see this kind of a thing among the Indian Muslims who are basically indigenous and culturally follow the Bharatiya practices, I'm not really surprised.
So yeah, the Muslim identity in India, like you said, seems to be, very different from, say, a broader, all Muslim country, So, but one point here is that when Muslims are asked, would you like a Sharia court to support you for cases like family disputes, inheritance, divorce cases? So overwhelming number of Muslims have said yes, 75%. And I was on Clubhouse, on discussing this, and I think there were a lot of discussions that, this is sort of like a non-binding arbitration and like a panchayat, helping, or a kap panchayat helping, or something like that. So
no, that's absolutely wrong. Who are these people in the Clubhouse? You should get somebody knowledgeable like me on Muslim law.
Yes, I think you should take it away.
This is nonsense. What do they mean by this arbitration? This is compulsory. Qazi's word is final. It is not non-binding arbitration. Unless
I had a point that this is a dangerous one, because you can't relent on arbitration, because there is no arbitration there.
There is no arbitration. There is no question of arbitration.
As a result of which, I said that you give them a millimeter and they will ask for a kilometer after that. So don't make that mistake of even relenting on that part of the thing, not considering. Yes.
Then I don't know how the question is asked, because there is a very, very stupid legislation called the Application of Shariat Act 1937. So Shariat in any case applies to them in the matters of personal law. So since it is applicable anyway, And there is also, I don't know whether you know this, there is a Qazi Act 1886. I administered that act when I was in the IAS. And so there is the application of Shariat Act, then there is the Muslim women, what is called, Muslim Women's Marriage Dissolution Act, and there is the Qazi Act. And so together this trio makes a very, very formidable Sharia edifice for the Muslims. It's already there. So I don't know when they say whether they prefer or not, what actually they thought, because it's already applicable.
Right.
Anybody who says that, okay, they prefer, so it's already there.
Right.
What kind of choice they have? And believe me, the choice was available to them prior to 1937. It is in 1937 that the British, along with the Congress, brought in this, what is called the Uniform Muslim Code, which made all the Indians subject to this Ashraf Mullah Maulana class. Before that, they were free.
Exactly. And in fact, those were part of the notes of the Pew Research. I was just reading through this. The 1937 Act was really discussed, and I think that was part of the, some of the notes.
If this government or any government wants to do any good to the Muslims, they should do away with this 1937 Act. That would automatically bring in the Uniform Civil Code. And that's how it used to be. Majority, 90% of Indians were not subject to Sharia law.
Mm-hmm.
I had this discussion on Uniform Civil Code, and I quoted from the Constituent Assembly debates that took place on this subject. And it was very clearly brought out that this whole thing happened because of the mullafication of the Muslim community.
Correct. Yep. And okay, so moving on. Indian culture and Muslims. I think this was a very, very interesting slide. When the Muslims are asked...
the slide is not showing here just now, Richa. Yeah. Now
okay. Yeah, it's there.
You can see it?
Yes, now it is.
Yes.
So I'm looking at... okay, great. All right. So, and I can see it now too on the phone. Like I'm just watching the YouTube channel on the side just to see how it's showing up. So Indian culture and Muslims, I think this is a very interesting slide also, where vast majority of the Indian Muslims say that Indian culture is superior. So I think that is a very, very, 85% of the Muslims say that they agree that Indian culture is superior.
Yeah, but I don't know what they asked, what they understand by Indian culture, because Indian culture, there are the facets of Indian culture is dharma and karma. And and rebirth. These are the facets, and these are the facets that actually make the culture tolerant. The Abrahamic cultures become naturally intolerant because of their linear time cycle. There's no time cycle in fact. Their linear time, because of which they have to compulsorily go to a eternal heaven and hell, depending upon the graces of the God and the Prophet. And that's why they are always in the mortal fear of God and Prophet. You would never have heard any Hindu saying that he is scared of his Lord.
Absolutely.
And be afraid of God is a typical term that is used by the Abrahamic religions.
Right.
So I don't even know whether people who were asking what Indian culture is actually knew what Indian culture is. In fact, most Indians also do not know what Indian culture means and why Indian culture is what it is. Because the Indian culture, the foundations are rooted in its time concepts, its logic concepts, its epistemology, its cosmology, its open science architecture, scientific architecture. And these are the factors that make Indian culture unique.
At the rudimentary level, I think they like Indian culture because they can get away with whatever they want to do. I think that's where.
That is a typical Hindi attitude. Okay, कोई बात नहीं. इस जन्म में नहीं तो अगले जन्म में ठीक कर लेंगे.
The Indian Zakir Naik, who's that? That's Zakir Naik, right? That big. He also said India is the best place. So who knows? I mean, they are being told that India is a good place for them, but they definitely believe that Indian culture. And it's just like I don't think they went into the depth of the question. It was just asked like this. So
yeah, I mean, as Sanjay ji is absolutely right that the idea or the knowledge of what Indian culture is really all about.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the symptoms, like, food is great, and
Right.
the dances are great, and the clothings are great, and, what is called, these are only what is called the outward symptoms.
Right. No,
What,
India is a happy hunting
what
ground.
brings this
Everybody's
out?
happy here.
The plurality, why it happens? It happens because of that, what is called the one, the one and the many manifestation. What we would call monism as against monotheism, because monotheism excludes, monism includes. So that is where the inclusion comes from.
Right.
Yes, what is this? Yeah, this.
So this is it is just a slide to show, the whole narrative around, there's intolerance and Muslims are being, discriminated against. So actually that is not true. This is that slide that shows us that 20% of Muslims say they face discrimination, which is the average in India. 80% overwhelmingly say they don't face any discrimination. So this is something just to, always keep in mind, and especially with these reports that are coming out in the United States.
Very good, very good. That's also interesting. Yeah.
All right. Now we come to pretty much I think this is my last topic, the Hindu identity, So in terms of the Hindu identity, they asked a ton of questions because, and also they added the BJP in the mix throughout this whole question, process. So first of all, they asked Hindus as to whether they see Hindu and Indian identity as closely tied together. So if you look at the people and their responses, largely people have said that Hindu identity is Indian identity and that diversity is good for India. So, I mean, whether you ask the general population, more than 50% have said that Hindu identity benefits the country and does not harm the country.
What percentage said that Hindu identity is Indian identity? That doesn't seem to reflect here.
So I think when we go further, we'll find that. But this one talks about just the benefit. Is the Hindu identity benefiting the country or harming the country? So this is a very specific question, I guess.
And more Muslims than Hindus say that it benefits the country. My God.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And Sikhs are the highest. Oh, what happens to the? I think this is a conspiracy against the Kisan Andolan.
Right. I mean, that's where I was very, very heartened because Sikhs, I found that, okay, they are really responding pretty well to most of the questions. They don't seem to have any of that, Khalistani bias. And the Muslims, like you see, again, they're similar to Hindus in terms of saying Hindu identity is good for India. Christians, on the other hand, as you see, a lot of them, so they are very politically correct. 30% have not responded at all. If you see the last bars, they are like neither.
Yeah, if you see the negatives, then negatives are about the same for everyone.
Exactly. Negatives are around the same. But Christians and Buddhists, they sort of refrain from talking about it. So I just wonder how they both talk in such coherent voices, like Christians, I understand they have an organized religion. What about the Buddhist? I don't know what's going on there. So then among the Hindu voters, they also obviously want to know all this information as to what is the BJP voter thinking. So among these people who see Hindu identity as Indian identity, benefiting India, how many voted for BJP? And so they see that those who voted for BJP say it is very important to be Hindu and to be able to speak Hindi. So these are the people who say that this Hindu identity benefits the country, and they are the majority among them. Other Hindu voters, less than 50%, say that the Hindu identity benefits the country. So basically, they wanted to see
There's
the
a large
difference.
number of neutrals there.
Exactly, large number of.
That's bad news for Rahul Gandhi. Even his voters overwhelmingly seem to think that Hindu identity benefits, and he wants a Roman identity. How will that work out?
It's not going to work out because, people have just been politically correct. Like a lot of them have just refrained from answering that question. But if you see, those who say no are much smaller. It's just
wait for Rahul Gandhi to say that this report was sponsored by BJP.
Okay, and they planted Jaipur dialogues to discuss it, is it?
Right. I mean, this is something we can have a field day with. This is like a fantastic report. And, the BJP voter is just wonderful. They value diversity,
But
when
there
they
was a
were.
very interesting language play. Sorry, Johnny, just that thought came
Yeah,
to my
yeah,
mind,
yeah.
so I'm sure you're going to cover that. That
Well, this
Hindi language,
and
हिंदू के लिए हिंदी जानना बहुत जरूरी है. That's the national identity. That was to create the language divide. Very interesting, very subtle, and very allowed.
Even I am opposed to it. Even I am
That's
opposed to it. I oppose Hindi as a national language. I want Sanskrit as a national language.
Right.
Rajendra Prasad was the one who created this nonsense. In the language commission, he had the casting vote, and there was a tie between Sanskrit and Hindi, and he voted for Hindi, and that's why Hindi became the national language.
Correct.
And Hindi had no case. Even today, it has no case. It is the youngest language. And all other languages, the South Indian languages, Marathi, Gujarati, Bengali, Oriya, all of them have older histories.
Right.
So why did they want to impose? That was because of, I think, Mahatma Gandhi's fad about Hindi. And rather, not just fad about Hindi, probably he was more anti-Sanskrit than pro-Hindi. Sanskrit as a national language can work beautifully even today.
Right.
Because all languages are on board, except resistance from Tamil now, which wasn't there in 1947, by the way. Except from resistance from Tamil Nadu, which wasn't there in 1947.
Correct.
This is a disaster which is created by the overzealous Hindi speakers.
Right.
And I see that every day. We do about 80% of our talks are in Hindi, and every time we throw in a talk in English, there will be 10 people saying Hindi, Hindi, Hindi. Oh, why the hell? Why not Tamil?
Yes. Right.
Right. I mean, in the South, I've lived down in the South, and very few people speak, Hindi in the local population. So it's very difficult for them, I guess. But I wonder how many people will speak Sanskrit. That's
They used to. If you ask, there's this history about it. Our saints and our mendicants and wanderers, they never had any difficulty because Sanskrit was spoken everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And we all prospered without English.
Swami Vivekananda went to Kerala and met the Raja of Travancore. What language did they converse in? Sanskrit.
Wow.
And it's just about 100 years back, a little more than 100 years back. And we spoilt it all by, what to say. I mean, these Congresses, they are the pits. They were the pits and they remain the pits.
Right. Yeah. So this is just that slide, like, Vibhuti Ji said, and he said that, the North-South divide will definitely come across in this slide.
But I'm surprised, being Hindu, 64%.
Right. Being Hindu, just 64%, 64% said that being Hindu is important to the national identity. And being able to speak Hindi is even lesser. Obviously, it's a national average.
I wish they should have asked Sanskrit. I think they would have got a better response.
Right. Yeah.
Because I'm sure everybody in Karnataka and Andhra, and I'm not sure about Kerala, it's too communist. But certainly in Karnataka and Andhra and Maharashtra, everybody would have preferred Sanskrit. Yes, Sanskrit, Sanskrit, Sanskrit. And we need to bring that consciousness in actually. Anyway, I think I
Right.
digressed a little bit. In excitement.
No, but like they definitely want to know who is voting for the BJP, because look at this, they want to know the correlation, right? So, but I don't think there was a major correlation here. If you see, in terms of who voted for the BJP in the 2019 election versus, who think that Hindu identity is important. So there is not that much. So, I'm looking at the final one, the final column. Who voted for the BJP and say that it is very important to be Hindu and to speak Hindi to be truly Indian is just 30% of them, which is like a third, which is not really a significant number. It's a lot more in the upper belt, in the northern belt, but still close to 50%. So it's not significant actually. So, I think this is the fiasco slide actually. There's not much to share here. But
Okay.
this probably is interesting because, Hindus continue to have beef with beef. Basically, I think among the different identities that they say, okay, how can you classify a person as a Hindu? So percentage of Indian Hindus who say a person cannot be a Hindu if they eat beef is the highest, So that seems to be a significant part. I mean, you celebrate Eid or do not celebrate Hindu festival. Those are also sort of important. But eating beef really disqualifies you to be a Hindu. And it's pretty significant. Celebrating Eid seems to be the second highest, most
I
popular.
don't, did they ask how many percentage ate beef?
No, I don't think they asked that. It's just beliefs, not what they do.
This data, according to me, is more divisive than anything else.
It's a flawed data. Okay,
Yeah,
because
it's
the basic
completely
question
flawed.
they have to first determine how many percentage of Hindus actually eat beef.
Right,
It won't. I doubt if it will cross 1%.
right.
Exactly. But no, that they consider it wrong or they consider eating beef as, non-Hindu. I think that's pretty significant. Like, I'm sure.
No, that's so even among the Sikhs, even among the Jains, all dharmic societies in India, they abjure beef.
Yes.
It's only the Muslims and Christians who prefer.
Right. So, but at least I think they asked it because I guess it was important for
And
them.
maybe they needed some politics at least, yeah.
Exactly. So just to understand the whole cow, the cow dynamics.
Yeah. So they
And
asked the wrong question. They didn't ask the right question.
yeah, probably they should have asked, "Do you eat beef?"
Yeah, they should
Right.
have asked.
So this is among Hindu voters, religious nationalism is also accompanied by heightened desire for religious segregation, greater religious observance. So this, I think I'm going to skip this slide because this is, it would have been better to do this on a granular level, on a regional level. But, I don't think this is that important. This was the final sort of slide. And this is just the final survey information as to how many people they surveyed. I think this is all well known. I don't think this is that important. I mean, there's a lot more.
Let me have a look at this partition.
Partition, okay. So partition is also slightly interesting. Hindus said it's a good thing. Buddhists said it's a good thing. Whereas I think the Muslims, Sikhs, obviously were the most impacted. I think Christians were divided about it. Christians many of them have said, can't say. Many of them have said that many times.
I think they're the most politically correct.
They
Most
are
of
the
the
most
things.
political. You said it. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Does that bring us to the end of the presentation? I think I'll ask Vibhuti ji to sum up the findings. I think all in all, very, very interesting. And of course, we were making running commentary all through. So I don't think that we need more commentary. But you can just sum it up and then we go to the questions because we've got a lot of questions.
Thank you. Richa, thank you very much for the wonderful presentation.
Wonderful presentation, Richa ji. My compliments.
You brought out the reality, and we had created our own slides, and I didn't send it to Sanjay ji. So thank you for taking the load. Now, I will immediately come to the quick conclusions that we had, and then very simple, that the entire global and mainstream media narrative is rubbish. And today I'll take the liberty of using the American slang, is bullshit. And as a result,
absolute bullshit. You can even use the buffalo bullshit, actually.
To be specific, yes. So the point which I'm trying to make is that we have to stand up to rebuild our own narrative. We have a tool now available, a source now available to make use of this. Number two is that all minorities are free to practice their religion in India. That's another important part, because the current narrative from Kamala Harris and mostly Indians, Pramila Jayapal, none of the 5 congressmen here who are Hindus essentially have ever spoken about Hinduism in their party. Look at the way it is. So what my point is here is to debunk that, reach out to the masses, reach out to the media, that if you want to talk about religious intolerance in India, go and first read the Pew report. It's 230 or 250 pages, as the case may be. The other part, that Muslims, interestingly enough, want to have an arbitration kind of an arrangement for triple talaq and family matters and divorce and estate matters. But those are the 3 essential things of life anyway. So I have quoted the phrase, no to that. Because you need a uniform civil code, and uniform civil code will be treated equal for everybody. Because my belief is, you give them a millimeter and they will ask for a kilometer. So let's not fall into that trap.
They already have a kilometer.
Right.
Didn't I say that they have the Sharia Act?
Let's not give them a mile. And the other important part, there are some people who are unhappy that the entire issue of marriage and love, they have not talked about love jihad. So there is no data available on that. I wish they had asked that question. That would have been an important thing, because there is a branding of India on account of religious intolerance in the name of love jihad. And finally, I would say,
love jihad is that is a marriage achieved by deceit. That is basically what it is.
Right. So like I said,
you hide your identity, you act as a Hindu, then you win the affection, and later on that you force convert the girl. That's an absolute criminal. That's completely criminal.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I said, to warning to Indian girls, Hindu girls particularly, love may be blind, jihad is not. Be conscious of that fact.
Absolutely.
And lastly, overall, it is definitely established that India is a remarkably religious tolerant country, and that we must be proud of, and we must push the agenda. As I have always said, Sanjay ji also opines the same thing, that if we don't build our narrative and we don't talk about the tools that are available to us now, knowing what we know now, we must do more. We must act. I will sum it up in that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Vibhuti ji. Thank you so much for your summing up. Next, we go to the question and answers, and let me again request my viewers to please share the video, like it, subscribe the channel, press the bell icon, and of course, we need all your support and contributions for our channel. So do keep obliging us with this from time to time. Yes. Okay, so what do we have? Rishi, Pew Research, be ready for cancel and deplatform. You just upset Kamala Harris, woke idlis.
I think you're right, but Pew, hopefully they have a lot of clout, so hopefully they will continue. We need them. The kind of service. Carnegie Endowment has also come up with a great survey for Indian Americans. It proves the same things, the liberal attitude of Hindus
Right.
and Indian Americans. Mm-hmm.
We talked about it in our show, actually. Yes.
Yes, a little bit, yes. Next. बौद्ध समुदायेन सह कः भेदभावः अस्ति? That we have to ask them. उनको ही पूछना पड़ेगा. किंचित विस्तारेण वदतु. We don't know. We only told you the findings. We are also wondering. Arun Tangri, any data on the education level of the communities?
Didn't see that.
No, so Pew Research is specifically for religious surveys. That is the mandate of Pew. They are a non-profit organization. So they don't really ask too much about other aspects like what profession you are in, what education level, all of those questions. So, their focus was religion and basically how people live together.
Next. How many of them heard go to Pakistan? That question wasn't asked. Next time you can suggest it to them. But I think you could deduce it from the data on whether partition was good or bad. And more Muslims said partition was bad than the Hindus.
Right.
Now Jeffrey Gettleman is depicted as BJP agent by Congress. Surely Soros will pull the rug from NYT. I think Soros will pull the rug not from NYT, but from Rahul Gandhi.
Sunk cost.
Absolutely sunk cost. The best is to, cut the losses and get out. Arun Tangri, instead of finding who voted for BJP, they should find who, or rather, why are they still voting for Congress?
Right. I think everyone is having fun with this survey. That's
right. In 2014 election, Sanjay ji, in the 2014 election, I had tweeted, my first or second or third tweet was, knowing what the Congress party did to the country, I wonder why anyone would vote for Congress. but there are still people.
That just shows old habits die hard.
Old habits die hard, yes.
I think they would find it very hard to find sample size, to find Congress voters. Maybe that's why.
They were not available even in random survey.
Rishi, Vijayji, just to remind you of the last session, given woke's gender misogyny, why a padri called as father and a nurse as sister? I'm sure you used it for better nuances.
We'll be using that.
That's a very bright question.
No,
what should you call
actually,
a third father?
He had said this in the last one. That's why he's reminding us that whether we have made use of it or not. I'm going to do that, Rishi. Worry not. Just. Yeah,
how can a church father be what is called a seeding parent?
Right. No, they have to change their whole thing. They have to change that. Holy Father, Holy God, and everything has to change. Holy nobody.
Yeah. Holy nobody. Now, what about the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost? How will that translate in the woke language?
Exactly. Germinator, terminator, and cohabitator.
The one-line takeaway, Arun Tangri. There's indeed unity in diversity. Even if we are screwed somewhere, we're all screwed up similarly. Happy for it.
I think everyone's love your comments.
Okay, thank you, Arun. Next. Rishi, I shared this report online without notes on my account was suspended. Richa Gautam, thank God you're not cancelled yet. Leftist woke, red salam.
Yeah.
Rahul,
I want to just add one thing. From the Pew Research, there was some people who were trying to create an ad on Twitter. They were not allowed to create that ad about caste being, the caste discrimination non-existent in India because
they go against their narrative.
Absolutely, they said it's sensitive content. We cannot do ads.
Someone
there you
sent
go.
this research to Obama, who said there is religious intolerance in India in 2016. Okay, so we've improved, is it? That too under
Yes.
Modi. I think
Thanks to
that would
Modi,
be,
that's right.
but that would be completely contraindicatory to the narrative that was built. How can Modi improve religious tolerance? That's not on.
I think all the anti-Modi guys must be sulking right now. कि अब क्या करें? You know,
They are.
I think they
That
should
is my
cancel.
first slide, Vibhuti ji. Second
Yeah.
slide, probably.
That they should cancel Pew. That's what they can do.
That would be fun.
Yeah, but they got too much clout to be cancelled, I think.
Yeah.
Next. Rishi, thank you so much, Vibhuti ji. From
Thank
Rishi.
You're welcome.
Next. Ekla Singh, Muslim women secretly voted for BJP because of triple talaq bill. Wouldn't they secretly vote for Yogi because of population control bill, considering no woman likes to produce children like animals? Well, let's see. But I'm not very sure about the secret voting. I think that's more figment of imagination than anything else. Next. Okay, so that brings us to the end of audience questions. So thank you all the viewers. And thank you very much, Richa ji, for a wonderful presentation. I think we all not only enjoyed the presentation, we also enjoyed the discussion of the presentation. And thank you, Vibhuti ji.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jai Hind.
Richa ji, sorry. Thank you very much. Indeed, great pleasure. And please do share the report. I will send my reports to both of you. And similar PowerPoint presentation that we did with the California-based organization. And so let's share more. Let's spread more. Let's build on this narrative. Let the narrative continue beyond this conversation as an action plan.
Thank you. Jai Hind. Vande Mataram.
Jai Hind. Vande Mataram.